I'm going to talk about my practice today, about how I've used numbers to help me. In my early days, I used to struggle a lot. They don't come naturally to me. I don't particularly like them. I don't hate them, but I'm not good with them. But you have to know, new businesses in Britain, this is a fairly recent figure, 20% will fail in the first year. And whilst we don't have accurate figures for the homeopathic community, I think we're not so different from anyone else. So it took me a while to understand that numbers are not all about pounds, shillings and pence, for those of you that remember all those years ago. It's really important to get smarter about them in order that your practice can plump up nicely, become all juicy from the inside out. So my practice, coincidentally, is it'll be 30 years old next year. Almost as old as this school and maturing nicely. Thank you very much. I have learned to pay a lot of attention to it. When I was first in practice, it needed loads of attention. Rather like a newborn baby, it needed 3-hourly feeds and everything. And its healthy growth and development really has depended on my continuing to pay it attention and to look after it, and being willing to pull the odd rabbit out of the hat. It's a whole being, as if one person. My practice is, is not this disparate thing. I am not my practice. But my practice has an energetic, living being in the world. It has something that I need to connect to. It reflects me, but it isn't me. So in the same way that I help my patients to understand and work with this dynamic continuum between health and disease that we all live on our whole lives long, as a practitioner, my goals are to work with the dynamic continuum of my practice, the health between health and disease, frankly. I've learned to take its temperature. Some days it's a little cool, other days it's too hot. I mean, to take its vital signs, any way in which you can connect with your practice as a being, as a whole person, as if one person, will help you, will help it. So how do we gauge the vital forces? Where is, of our practices, where is its center of gravity? You have to find a way to do this. It can be a purely pragmatic process, or with numbers and, are you paying your bills? Are you getting, filling all your appointment slots? Or you can make it a more meditative process. And imagine it. I mean, anytime. We're not going to do guided visualizations today, but you can sit, close your eyes and imagine. Just call your practice up in your mind's eye. What shape is it? What color? Do you get a word or a feeling or an image? How is it to you? This is your business. In the same way that successful business people will do the same, will go through the same exercise. I used to, in supervision, take myself to supervision as a baby homeopath, and often end up just talking all about myself, but it isn't all about me. Some of it is about this energetic being that I need to connect to and live with on a daily basis. In my own mind's eye, my practice now is a comfy armchair. I love it. Times it's more of a river, a bit fast at times, maybe a bit slow at others, and I just try and go with the flow. If I can't, I have to sometimes pick it up a pace. And occasionally my practice goes all punk on me. And that can be, you know, that you have to hang on for those times. It's fun. But I have to wrestle it back then. So, UCLan, the University of Lancaster, Jean Duckworth and Hazel Partington carried out qualitative research on successful homeopaths to find out what they could find. They conducted interviews and analysed the results, and they found there are no real surprises here. They found that practitioners who are thriving show a range of common themes. The one that's particularly interesting to me in the context of this talk is the rhythm of practice. This category includes, quote directly, the stages of practice, the development of a symbiotic rhythm between the practice and the practitioner. This, however, was tempered by the awareness of needing to put the work in and being open to opportunities. It's very important stuff. So, in the context of a thriving practice, it isn't all about the bottom line. Job satisfaction and helping people, this is what we're here for, count for a tremendous amount. My core values, my goals, my vision, all help to define who I am and as a practitioner and the degree to which I'm successful. They help me stay honest and grounded and focused. So, I was in practice for 5 years and I had the feeling that I wasn't helping anyone. A lot of people weren't coming back. I wasn't sure if I could hold my head up in public and say, I'm a homeopath. I wasn't sure. So, Christmas, you know, everything shuts down, it's quiet. I did my tax returns like a good girl, like, business, newly in business, to be ahead of the game with my tax returns. And I got every patient chart off the shelves and I put them in 3 piles. So this original study, as I call it now, was to count my successes and my failures and to see what I could see with a more or less open mind. I didn't know what I was looking for. So the piles were those who were doing well, those who were coming back in spite of not doing so well, and those I hadn't heard from. That was quite a big pile. And I got in touch with those people. I called them, this is the good old days, we sent out letters, put a stamp on the envelope and everything. And I wanted to know if I was doing a good enough job. Actually, we have a duty, I believe, to engage in this process. And the people I've badgered, encouraged, I haven't actually bribed anyone yet, but the ones that I have really encouraged to go through this process have been really surprised at how pleasant it is. In the early days, I just, felt trepidatious. I gulped furiously. But I did it anyway, and because the responses were so nice, it kept me going. Why were they so nice? People like to feel cared for. So, percentage of the non-returners hadn't come back because they'd gotten better. That's good. Some of them had gotten better because they'd been to the acupuncturist or a proper doctor, or had fallen in love. There's no bigger healer. And I only found that out if I asked directly. Some people had gotten better and then relapsed, and there was a variety of reasons why they hadn't come back in. But I didn't use these calls or contacts to book people in. I just wanted to know, and the real shame of how I've done this, not having any formal background in research, is I haven't tracked over the years. I haven't kept really good records. So, hardly anyone was embarrassed. The odd person was a little frosty, and you just let it go. From that time forth, I've conducted the same or similar research audit, as I called them, at about the same time every year. So, it's a sort of gloriously cleansing experience, and I feel very virtuous after I do it. I learned to weave in reflections about my practice as I went through my piles. Think, gosh, you know, what's happening? What's happened in my practice that's interesting or new this year? What do I want? What goals do I want to set for the year ahead? And some of these changes, some of the changes I made as a result of these reflections were successful, and others were not so much. Okay, so I'm going to skip over a few slides. You can get the PDF online. But these are the questions that bubbled up in me after I started asking just the one question. It's a sort of biblical proportions and if you talk to researchers, you find that you're not alone. I wanted to know who my patients were, how old they were, whether they were male or female, what complaints they were coming in with, what remedies I'd been giving. Actually, there's no end. And what they thought, this is the most important of all that I'm really wrestling with right now. What do my patients think about their healing processes, and do their thoughts, their assessments match mine? Okay. The immediate success was that the January slump in my practice completely disappeared. I haven't had one since. I felt connected to my practice in a really nice way. Felt great. And over the years, it's helped me feel better about myself, more confident. So, one year, I tracked the no-shows from my appointment book and was shocked at how much I added up the cost. It was thousands of pounds. This is first appointments and follow-ups. About one a week on average. So, the solution, it took me several years to work up a solution that was 100% effective. I send out new patient letters that are a letter and a medical background form and an information leaflet about homeopathy. I used to use the societies. That's a very homeopathy simply explained, and my fee schedule. In a beautiful signed, you know, myself signed, not a form letter, proper letter. And from that date, I don't get any no-shows, not one. 1 year, my practice felt so overwhelming, it felt like a burden. I began to resent it. And I logged the time I was spending at work. You know, I have a simple chart in my book on stress, and I just pulled it and copied it. And I just logged all the time, every quarter of an hour. And I found out it was very bad. I was, you know, had to go to workaholic jail. So I joined a choir. Singing massages my soul. It's just a fabulous way for me to just feel one with everything. And I had an assistant. 4 hours a week, it wasn't much. But if you add it up, again the numbers, 22 days a year. I might have added that up wrong, but you told me. No, I think that's right. And, or 24, not counting Christmas. So, sometimes the solutions are really sort of fairly straightforward. So she did everything that I didn't have to talk to her about. All the filing, data entry, appointments, things that didn't need my management. So she could take work off my plate without my having to put more time in. Okay. Failures. Whoops. 1 year, I needed to earn more money and couldn't raise my fees because this was in a slump, you know, it was in the 90s or 80s, whenever we had a big slump back then. So I made a decision. I looked again at the numbers, found I was spending an hour or two most evenings working up cases. It's like 10 hours a week. So I put pressure on myself to prescribe on every patient in the consulting room. I abandoned the experiment after 3 months because I got the worst results of my working life, and I've never gone back to that. 1 year, the pile of patients who'd gotten better was smaller, and the people who weren't getting better was bigger. I looked back and I said, what's different about this year compared with previous years? No postgraduate training, no seminars, no CPD days, no supervision, nothing. So I just popped, you know, those back in. We need to go and get juiced up. You know, we need to find some way to study, to increase our knowledge base. My experience is I'm getting difficult patients, more difficult as I get more experienced. It's very sad. So then I wanted more. I wanted to create a dialogue with people. There's a point at which the piles stopped working. I wanted something better. And I actually was incredibly naive about the amount of work involved in this. I created a survey online. SurveyMonkey, for those of you that don't know, is free for 10 questions. It's brilliant. And I sent it out to new patients, people who'd come in and hadn't returned within 3 months or more, and old clients who'd been returning on a regular or semi-regular basis. And I asked about 20 questions with notes to each question. The notes created a tremendous amount of data and a lot of mental and emotional indigestion. So again, I'm not going to dwell on these, but these are the SurveyMonkey charts. You know, they're very nice. This is, I asked people to rate their general well-being at their first appointment on a scale of 0 to 6, just following the MyMark form, and and scoring it now, well-being after treatment. So that was nice. And you know, there are some people who didn't respond, you'll see, who were not happy. And so then when I asked how helpful was homeopathy in general, there are 1 or 2 people, 2 people who found it distinctly unhelpful. So I was able to follow up with those people, pick up the pieces and see what happened. It was a similar story with the old clients, the ongoing clients. They felt better, which that's why they keep coming back, duh. And more of them were happy, again, duh. So these are basically uncontrolled studies in research terms. This means I do it. There are no controlled groups to check it against. And what's in real life with the acupuncture, we haven't done it in our community yet, but the acupuncturists have, and they found that when they went into a proper controlled study, their results fell by 30%. We don't know why. But we have to, at some point, face this in our own... I would love to be involved in facing it. We need to know why. And it's because it's possible the patients are wanting to police me. So they say they're better than they really are. So I loved that Jeremy asked if his patient had taken his remedy, because most homeopathic researchers in the big outcome studies, there's only one study that I came across where the patients were asked if they took their remedies. Now then, the Brits who are listening to this, you know that patients seeking ordinary medical treatment, only about 30% take their meds. 60% will cash the prescriptions, and 30% won't even bother to do that. So it's 1 in 3. It amazes me that so many of our patients do take their medicines. And actually, unless we ask, I think we won't know how many are not. Or not taking them as we told them to. So I asked people in this study, were they doing other therapies? And they were, lots. And had they found them beneficial? Yes. And I summarized, and I asked them also what had stopped them from keeping in touch with me. And I gave them a lot of options, including other, you know. And I got lots of different and fascinating and very helpful responses, which you can all read. So, the comments. Some of them were good, of course. You know, people appreciated the concern, felt that it was a shame homeopathy isn't more widely available, felt that it had been a lifesaver, a miracle. I mean, people, all the wonderful words that you know what? If we want these words to feed us, we've got to face the other side, right? You know, we got to deal with all feedback. So some people weren't so convinced. Some people did reasonably well, and like one person was grateful that homeopathy led the way to acupuncture, which really did help. And one person felt confused, read her books or his books again, and a minute took the remedy, went out and bought it off their own back, took the remedy again, and then it worked. I love that. And then, of course, I know homeopathy works. For some reason, it's not been working for me. So, I've used 1 year, I pulled out all the really difficult cases, the ones that were intractable, and I cherry-picked a dozen, and I worked with them for free to see if I could get to a place of helping that person and what it would take. About 50% I helped, 50% I didn't, but the ones I helped taught me a tremendous amount. We don't always know what's broken. If we don't know, it's very hard to fix it, however good it is. And then people who've been through a healing mill or 3 they've got different symptoms from the ones they had way back when, and now that makes it very difficult for us. So anyway, the comments that gave me food for self-reflection, the ones that made me change, made me change things about the way I work were, the truly negative. There weren't, thank God, that many, but people were not clear about my follow-up procedures. I've got an existential style, we all do, and I'm quite dogmatic. Some of you may have noticed. So for some people, that can be offensive or off-putting or unpleasant. I try and, have bad days. So, and then my fees. If what I did didn't work, people were very unhappy with the money. Of course they were. So I wrote a leaflet called Following Up With Me. And I instituted a free treatment policy for people who've come in and have not responded. That has been brilliant for me. So people will come back. I don't lose patients like I used to. And I let people know if I can feel myself, being a little Rottweilerish, I let people know that I'm ruthless about getting the information that I need to help them. That's my bottom line about my behaviour. So I sent out a response, a report, you know, a simple email, let everybody know that I conducted, because I often fill out surveys. No one ever lets me know the results of them. So people really like this, that I kept in touch, the communication aspects. Keeping those communications flowing is really helpful. And I said, I can't help everyone, but it's my aim to continuously improve and update the way I work, and I do use people's feedback to make improvements in my practice, even after 30 years. And you know what? It keeps me from being bored. Have you been bored once? 30 years? That is remarkable. So, the data collection, management and analysis, if you do anything but piles, anything but Excel spreadsheets, can be a nightmare. So I became a FileMaker developer. It's a database, a cross-platform database, and I wrote Compass. It's a paperless office for homeopaths. And I send out letters ahead of, you know, just automatic, sending out letters to upcoming patients for upcoming appointments. I can track with it. I don't have to spend 2 days. It used to take me 2 whole days to classify pull all the files off the shelf, put them in piles, write or call everyone. 2 whole days. Now it's a few minutes, literally. So I learned that what I'm doing is outcomes research, fancy name, and over the years these 3 piles have developed into 6 distinct and meaningful categories. So here they are. The simillimums, these are our highest goals. So there are improvements on every level. The presenting complaint clears up, there's an increased sense of well-being, there is an aggravation because I tracked it. I used Compass to help me track all the responses, and I found that sometimes similar remedies, thank you Jeremy, will produce, Jeremy, produce aggravations, but mostly not, that only the simillimum, and the simillimum works over time, repeated, it works for an acute illness, the client doesn't need to come back so often, and so on and so forth. They're able to manage stressors better. Similars, these are the majority of our prescriptions, the client improves, and there's no shame, these are great remedies. This is people, I'm happy with a similar remedy. But more than one remedy is involved over time. There's a logic usually to the remedy changes, but it doesn't work in an acute illness, and the client has to return a bit more often. These are not our miracles. I have a category called doing well. These are people, not enough time has passed under the bridge to know if I can put them in the similar or the simillimum category, that's all. Variable means sometimes the remedies help and sometimes they don't, but the client keeps returning. And usually stressors still, their usual stressors make them fall sick each time. We have to work much harder. And then there are ones who keep coming back in spite of not responding. And the final one is no feedback, meaning they came once, never came back. So this is what my typical outcomes look like, and this is fairly standard for me now. I worked very hard to get my results up into these percentages. So about 26% doing badly, not well at all, or mixed. But 4% are doing well, either doing very well or well enough. I can hold up my head in public. Who are my customers, as my son used to call them when he was little? You know, so it's helpful to know what patient populations you're attracting. And mine is so surprising. I've 36% in the male group, but of the male group, 29% are in the 0 to 9 age group, and another 28% in the 10 to 19, because the boys, I'm attracting a ton of autistic children. They're totally breaking my heart. I mean, really, it's a terrible world. It's a terrible thing that's happening. And then in the women, a lot of women in the 40 to 60 age group, of course, a lot of menopausal. So in my earlier years, especially when I set out in practice, I worked almost exclusively with families, and my mother and baby book came out of that. And it appears that now that I'm a granny, a new granny, I'm menopausal. My practice a little bit is reflecting on that. It's interesting. But knowing who's coming to you, will help you. It would be smart for me to promote, to give talks, to write for these groups, to let people know that I'm here and I've got a lot of juice for them. So, referrals count. The numbers here are very interesting. So some practitioners, I have a medical doctor who sends me a card every time I refer a patient. I don't do that, but I could. If you do send cards, thank you cards, make sure you get your patient to sign off in the consent form to let them know that you're doing that, because I've had people say, I don't want you to. I've had them say that a lot. What I do, the way I do it, is I notice when another practitioner has referred 5, 10, 15, 20 patients to me, in another therapy. This networking that we should be doing is very helpful. I refer out to some practitioners, the cranial osteopaths, some are wonderful, the body workers, they're very compatible, psychotherapists. One practitioner sent me so many, I sent her a gift basket. She cried. No one had ever thanked her before, and she wrote me a thank you card and everything. It made me feel, it was, and then another, I noticed, this is years ago in my practice, one practitioner who sent me a ton of patients. I offered to do a first aid class in her clinic, and then there was an economic downturn, and they had a hard time in their business. The whole practice was struggling, and so I put her whole family on free treatment until they got back on their feet. So it's just a way of connecting with the larger healing communities and expressing gratefulness. You don't have to have any fancy software. You can just write all the referrals on one sheet as they come in, just so you know who's sending you all your patients, or many of them. Remedy audits. Again, I use Compass to do this. What remedies am I giving most often and why? I had a year where I gave sulfur once. That's got to be wrong. So I went back through all the cases who were not doing well. I pulled out half a dozen sulfurs. Because I'd just gotten fixated, on I was doing fancy prescribing, or I don't know what. I was not paying attention to the polycrests. Which remedies aren't you giving? Okay, confession time. So, for the first 20 years in practice, I never gave graphites. how could I not give it? And then I would give it because I felt like I hadn't given it, and I must make friends with this remedy. I felt so stupid about it, and it never worked. Finally I did. I got a couple of graphite patients, or patients who needed graphites. I can print out contact sheets. I mean, I used to do, when I had paper file charts, I used to have a contact sheet at the front of every chart that I could copy for if I was referring a patient. You know, they referred themselves if they moved or what have you. And in Compass, I can do something rather glorious, which is I can see my pool, the remedies that I've given, all of them. What, you know, I can see a full list, and I use this list to study the ones that aren't there. Why aren't I giving the salts of aluminum, for example? Aluminium. Aluminum. English. The numbers of the remedies I keep in stock, I don't know, some of us have huge stock and it's our only tangible asset, and so, or one of our few, and I do, you know, in case there's a fire or a theft, it's good to know I've got 2,063 bottles, and I would claim accordingly. To replace those, the replacement cost would be considerable. I can also, when the patient's I can look it up to see if I've got it in stock or not. That's nice. So, numbers in the consulting room. My mop uses a 0 to 6 scale. I haven't found that so helpful. In the consulting room, I use 0 to 10. So, are you feeling better? And I go through, I make a checklist, a short list of symptoms with each patient. Their list, we agree the list, and whip through it at each and every follow-up. Because the remedy works really well, if you, there's some of them. You're now in the present, marching forward. You had a headache? It's behind you. You don't remember it. People do not remember it, do they? So, and if it's an acute, this is particularly helpful to say, are you feeling, if they're a bit better or not, to always give the option, and if they're feeling a bit better, to not say, do you remember how you felt? Say on a scale of 1 to 10, how much better? And if they say, on a scale of 1 to 10, what number are you now? So if they're on if 0's the best and 10's the worst, or agony, and then if they say 4 and I look back through their notes and they were at an 8, that's considerable improvement. Even if they are not, if it hasn't gone, they're healing, they're on the road, and people this process of healing needs some support and education at times. So this is very helpful to me. It helps me to know if someone's being stoic and saying they're a bit worse, and actually they're not, they're a lot worse, and I've got to get on it immediately. Keeping in touch, here's another number. In the olden days, I would send out 1 mailing shot a year, or 2 max, because it was so expensive to do letters and envelopes. But now we have emails, and I do send out an email once every 1 to 3 months. I put in news, health information, homeopathic information that they can use, and to keep them current, just keep in touch. Now, I used to backfile people. I used to only send this out to people who were currently in touch. And then one time, I decided, again, January, I saw that I had a huge backfiling, and I said, well, I wonder if I'm going to just do a one-off experiment and send out my Happy New Year's letter to everybody. And it was amazing. I heard from so many people who were sorry to have lost touch with me, who were glad to be back in contact. It was very sweet. People love it. And people can always unsubscribe. They get fed up with it. Okay, bit about the money. This is just a tiny weeny bit. I'm always amazed at the homeopaths who don't know, don't track, the patients who owe them money, who said they'd pop a check in the mail, who are paying in installments somehow, you know. So you got to do it right, really. You got to find a way to track the invoicing. I mean, to be professional. And no business can stay still and survive and thrive. So, I mean, every year I'll juice my practice up somehow. I'll do something to help me feel connected and to fluff it up a little bit, this armchair, you know, this cozy armchair. And right now it's all about social networking. Do you remember, those of you that are over the age of 40 or 50 or 60? I remember when I first went into practice, I had friends who were homeopaths who refused to get an answer machine. True. So it's, you know, Woody Allen's Radio Days is a great movie to watch, to sort of get an education about, you know, times change. And I love Facebook, I don't care. I find it fun, and, you know, it's just fun. And I love being able to keep in touch so easily. And you can choose not to. It's not for the introverted, for sure, but if you don't do it, it's going to, you know, you're going to fall behind. Find a way to do it that's congruent with who you are, maybe, as well. So every business has its own unique character, one that reflects you. I've said that. We need to measure, take the temperature of our practices on a regular basis, and ask our patients, are we meeting your expectations or not? Or are we exceeding them? Sometimes we do that, and that's lovely. And I just want to share my mission statement with you around this, which is that I am a dedicated and curious homeopathic practitioner who carries out informal, clinical and reflective practice studies on a regular basis in order to continuously update and improve the services I offer to my patients and to continually evolve and grow as a homeopath. I love that. Compass is my beloved software program. I do really adore it, and it's free. You can download it for free and try it out. I use a bulk mailer to send out email shots. Don't do it from your email box, don't. You can use Constant Contact or MailChimp. MailChimp is the one that people love the best, but Constant Contact got there first, so it's the one that nearly everybody knows best. MailChimp is free for 12,000 emails a month. And Max Bulk Mailer, I've tried them all. It's a software program, it's not web-based. You download it to your own computer and send out. You have to know a bit of HTML. There's a big learning curve if you're not high-tech. And then there's a few other bits and pieces of resources, all of which are available in the PDF. And so I want to thank Misha and Manny and the School of Homeopathy and wish them well for the next 30 years, and all the fine sponsors who are supporting this school and this wonderful event. Thank you.